The reception's golden glow seemed to mock Harmony as she maneuvered her wheelchair through the crowd of Helena's friends. Designer dresses and perfect smiles surrounded her, a constellation of success she no longer belonged to. She'd managed to avoid most conversations by staying near the bar, nursing a single glass of champagne. Harmony. Helena appeared beside her in a rustle of silk and tulle. There you are. I was looking everywhere for you. Come on, I'm about to throw the bouquet. I think I'll sit this one out, Harmony replied. Helena's laugh was bright but brittle. Don't be silly. You're part of this celebration too. James specifically asked me to make sure you felt included. The mention of Helena's new husband made something twist in Harmony's chest. James Blackwood was handsome in a calculated way. He worked in finance, or consulting, or something equally vague that required expensive suits and frequent business trips. That's very thoughtful of him, Harmony said, but I think I'll just watch from here. Oh, come on. Helena's voice carried an edge now. Everyone's already talking about how you're being antisocial. At least pretend to have fun for my sake. The words hit like a slap. Harmony looked around and realized Helena was right. Guests were watching their exchange with barely concealed curiosity. Fine, Harmony said. I'll watch the bouquet toss. That's my girl. You never know. Maybe you'll catch it and finally find someone special. As Helena glided away to gather the unmarried women, Harmony positioned her wheelchair at the edge of the group. The other women chatted and laughed, their excitement infectious, but Harmony felt like she was watching from behind glass. When Helena raised the bouquet, white roses and baby's breath tied with silver ribbon, the crowd surged forward with outstretched hands. That's when the drunk groomsman's voice cut through the laughter like a blade. Hey, Helena, he called out. Don't throw it to the cripple. Waste of good flowers. What's she gonna do? Roll down the aisle? The silence that followed was deafening. Harmony felt every eye in the room turn to her and saw the mixture of pity, embarrassment, and secondhand shame on their faces. Helena's bouquet wavered in her hands, her face cycling through shock, anger, and something that looked uncomfortably like relief that someone else had said what they were all thinking. Harmony didn't trust herself to speak. She simply turned her wheelchair and moved toward the exit, her cheeks burning with humiliation. Behind her, she heard Helena's bright voice rallying the crowd back to celebration, erasing the awkward moment with practiced ease. The lake stretched before her like a dark mirror, reflecting the first stars of evening. The gazebo sat at the end of a wooden boardwalk, accessible despite her wheelchair, a thoughtful touch from the wedding planner that now seemed like cruel irony. She rolled to the edge where the boards met the water, close enough that she could see the gentle lap of waves against the posts below. 6 years ago, her parents had driven off this very lake's ice-covered surface. The police said they'd hit a patch of black ice and skidded through the guardrail. Harmony had been following in her own car and had watched in horror as their vehicle disappeared beneath the frozen water. She'd tried to save them and had ended up trapped in the wreckage of her own car when she crashed trying to reach them. The doctors said it was a miracle she'd survived, that the accident could have claimed all 3 of them. Maybe I should have died with them, she whispered to the darkness. She inched her wheelchair closer to the water's edge, her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and relief. After years of existing in the shadow of her former life, she was finally ready to make a choice, to take control of the one thing she still could. The sound of footsteps on the boardwalk made her freeze. She turned, expecting to see Helena or perhaps one of the wedding guests coming to check on her. Instead, a small figure emerged from the shadows beneath the gazebo, a little girl, no more than 5 or 6, with tangled hair and clothes that had seen better days. "Excuse me, pretty lady," the child said. "Would you like to be my mommy?" Harmony stared at the little girl in stunned silence. The child was thin, almost gaunt, with enormous eyes that seemed to hold too much knowledge for someone so young. Her clothes, a faded pink dress and scuffed sneakers, were clean but clearly second-hand. Most striking was the stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms, its fur worn smooth from years of loving. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Harmony managed, her planned exit from the world suddenly forgotten in the face of this unexpected apparition. "I asked if you'd like to be my mommy," the girl repeated. You look sad like I feel sometimes, but you also look kind. Daddy says kind eyes are the most important thing. Before Harmony could respond, another figure stepped from the shadows, a man who seemed to materialize from the darkness itself. He was tall and lean, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than Harmony's car. His hair was dark, swept back from a face that belonged on a Renaissance sculpture, but it was his eyes that made her breath catch. Sky, he said, what did I tell you about wandering off? The little girl, Sky, looked sheepish but unrepentant. I saw the pretty lady by the water and she looked lonely. I thought maybe we could help each other. The man's gaze shifted to Harmony, and she felt pinned like a butterfly on a collector's board. There was something familiar about him, but she couldn't quite grasp it. Forgive the intrusion, he said. We were passing through. Passing through a private wedding? Harmony found her voice. Private events are sometimes the best places to observe human nature. People reveal their true selves when they think they're among friends. The comment sent a chill down Harmony's spine. Had he been watching the reception? Had he seen her humiliation? Sky tugged at her father's hand. Daddy, can we keep her? She has sad eyes like Mama used to have, but kind ones too. I think she needs us. Sky. The man's voice held a warning. Not everyone needs rescuing, little star. But she does, Sky insisted with the absolute certainty of childhood. She looked directly at Harmony. You were thinking about swimming, weren't you? But the water's too cold and dark. There are better places to find peace. Harmony's blood turned to ice. How could a 5-year-old possibly know? How does she began, but the man cut her off with a slight shake of his head. Children see things, adults miss, he said quietly. He crouched down to Sky's level, bringing himself closer to Harmony's eye line. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the slight shadow of stubble along his jaw. There was something magnetic about him, dangerous and compelling in equal measure. My name is Dante Morrison, he said, and you're Harmony Wilson. How do you know who I am? She asked. I make it my business to know interesting people, and you, Miss Wilson, are very interesting indeed. I'm really not, Harmony said. I'm just the broken sister in the corner, trying not to ruin anyone's good time. Is that what they tell you, that you're broken? Something in his tone made her look at him more carefully. There was anger there, tightly controlled but unmistakable. Not at her, but on her behalf. It's what I tell myself, she said. It's easier than pretending I'm still whole. Wholeness is overrated, Dante said. Some of the strongest people I know carry scars. They're proof of survival, not failure. Sky had wandered closer to Harmony's wheelchair, her small hands reaching out to touch the armrests. It's like a special chair, she said with wonder. Does it go fast? Despite everything, Harmony found herself smiling. Sometimes. Want to see? She engaged the motor and rolled in a small circle, making Sky giggle with delight. When she stopped, the little girl was bouncing on her toes. That's so cool. I wish I had a special chair like that. Sky sees possibilities where others see limitations, Dante observed. One she's going to lose if she stays in the system much longer, Harmony said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. What makes you say that? I used to be a photojournalist. I did a series on children in foster care. The system, it's not kind to children who see too much. No, Dante agreed quietly. It's not. The sound of music and laughter drifted across the water from the wedding reception, a reminder of the world they'd temporarily escaped. Harmony glanced back toward the pavilion, where she could see Helena's silhouette moving among her guests. I should go, she said reluctantly. Helena will be looking for me. Will she? What do you mean? Only that your sister seemed quite absorbed in her celebration when we arrived. I doubt she's noticed your absence. The words stung because they were probably true. Helena was living her fairy tale tonight, and Harmony was just a reminder of life's harder realities. You don't know my sister, Harmony said defensively. I know more about your family than you might think, Dante replied, including the fact that Helena's new husband has some very interesting business associations. Before Harmony could ask what he meant, Sky suddenly threw her small arms around Harmony's shoulders in an impulsive hug. "I knew you were special," the little girl whispered in her ear. Harmony's chest tightened with unexpected emotion. When was the last time someone had hugged her like this, without pity, without reservation, just pure affection from one human being to another? "We should go, Sky," Dante said gently. "The lady needs to return to her family." "But she could be our family too," Sky protested. "Couldn't you, Miss Harmony?" She began. But Dante was already lifting Sky away from her wheelchair. "Another time, little star," he said. But as he straightened, his eyes met Harmony's, and she saw something there that made her pulse quicken. Recognition, perhaps, or possibility. "Do I know you?" she asked suddenly. "You seem familiar. Perhaps we've crossed paths before. The world is smaller than most people realize." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small white card, extending it to her. Harmony took it, noting that it was blank except for an address written in elegant script. "What is this?" "An invitation," Dante said. "If you decide that existing isn't the same as living, you might find us there." "Daddy," Sky said, "are we really leaving? I want to stay with Miss Harmony." "Miss Harmony has to make her own choices, sweetheart," Dante said. "Just as we all do." The sound of footsteps on the boardwalk made them all turn. Helena was approaching, her wedding dress rustling with each step, her expression a mixture of concern and irritation. "Harmony, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for—" She stopped short when she saw Dante and Sky, her face cycling through confusion, recognition, and what looked like fear. "Helena," Dante said pleasantly, "congratulations on your wedding. You look radiant." Helena's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "What are you doing here?" "Enjoying the evening air," Dante replied. "Your sister and I were just getting acquainted." "My sister doesn't know anyone like you," Helena said quickly. "No," Dante agreed. "She doesn't. Yet." The tension between them was thick enough to cut, and Harmony found herself looking back and forth between her sister and this mysterious man like she was watching a tennis match. "Do you two know each other?" she asked. "No," Helena said at the same time. Dante said, "We've never been formally introduced. But you know of me," Dante continued. "Don't you, Mrs. Blackwood?" The use of Helena's new married name made her flinch. "I think you should leave. This is a private event." "Of course," Dante said agreeably. "Bye, Miss Harmony. I hope I see you again soon." "Goodbye, Sky," Harmony managed. Dante paused at the edge of the gazebo. "Give my regards to your husband, Mrs. Blackwood. Tell him Morrison sends his congratulations on acquiring such a lovely family." Helena's sharp intake of breath was audible in the night air, as Dante and Sky disappeared into the shadows. "We need to go," she said urgently. "Right now." "Helena, what's wrong? How do you know that man?" "I don't," Helena said, "and neither do you. Promise me, Harmony. Promise me you'll forget this ever happened." Harmony looked down at the card in her hands, then slipped it into her purse before Helena could see it. But even as she promised her sister she'd forget, she knew she was lying. Dante Morrison and his daughter had appeared at the exact moment she'd needed them most, offering her something she'd thought was gone forever. The ride back to Helena's house was tense with unspoken questions. Harmony sat in the passenger seat of her sister's Mercedes, watching Helena's knuckles grip the steering wheel like a lifeline. "You're being ridiculous," Harmony said. "It was just a man and his daughter. They were perfectly harmless." "Harmless," Helena repeated. "God, Harmony, you have no idea." She stopped herself, jaw clenching. "No idea about what? Helena, you're scaring me." Helena pulled into her driveway with more force than necessary, the gravel spraying under the tires. The house loomed before them, a colonial mansion that James had bought as a wedding gift, complete with columns and manicured gardens that belonged in a magazine spread. "Just drop it, okay?" Helena said, not meeting her eyes. "Some things are better left alone." But Harmony couldn't drop it. As Helena helped her transfer from the car to her wheelchair, she thought about the way Dante had known her name, the familiarity that had tugged at her memory, the fear that had flashed across Helena's face when she'd seen him. Inside the house, Helena busied herself with unnecessary tasks, hanging up coats, checking locks, anything to avoid conversation. "I'm going to change," Helena announced, gathering her skirts. "You should get some rest. It's been a long day." "Helena," Harmony's voice stopped her sister. "Whatever's going on, you can tell me. We're family." "There's nothing going on. I'm just tired, and maybe I had too much champagne." "Forget about that man, Harmony. He's not someone you want to get involved with." After Helena disappeared upstairs, Harmony sat alone in the pristine living room, turning Dante's card over in her hands. The address was written in fountain pen, the ink a deep blue that seemed to shimmer in the lamplight. She recognized the area, an expensive district on the other side of the city where old money built walls around their secrets. Unable to sleep, she wheeled herself to Helena's home office and powered up the computer. If Helena wouldn't tell her about Dante Morrison, maybe the internet would. The search results were frustratingly sparse. A few mentions in society pages, attending charity galas and art openings, always alone. No business listings, no social media presence, no photographs that showed his face clearly. It was as if he existed in the spaces between official records, visible enough to be real but vague enough to remain mysterious. She tried searching for missing children cases, remembering the way Sky had looked, thin, wary, despite her cheerful demeanor, like a child who'd learned to hide her hunger. But there were too many cases, too many faces of lost children staring back at her from the screen. Frustrated, she was about to close the browser when a headline caught her eye. "Local photojournalist dies in tragic accident." The article was dated 6 years ago, just a few weeks after her parents' death. But it wasn't about her. It was about another journalist, a man named David Chen, who'd been investigating child trafficking rings in the city. Chen had been found dead in his apartment, apparent suicide according to the police report. But the article mentioned that he'd been working with another journalist on the story, someone who'd been injured in a car accident shortly before Chen's death and couldn't continue the investigation. Harmony's blood ran cold. She clicked through to related articles, finding her own name mentioned in passing. Harmony Wilson, award-winning photojournalist, remains hospitalized following the accident that claimed her parents' lives. The timeline was too convenient to be coincidence. She'd been investigating child trafficking, her parents had died in a suspicious accident, and her investigation partner had supposedly killed himself weeks later, but she couldn't remember any of it. The doctors had said the head trauma had caused selective amnesia, that the memories might never return. Looking for something specific, Harmony spun her wheelchair around to find James Blackwood standing in the doorway, still wearing his wedding tuxedo but with the bow tie undone and hanging around his neck. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I was just browsing. Research can be a dangerous hobby, especially when you're not sure what you're looking for." "I'm not researching anything in particular." "No?" He leaned against the desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Not looking into old friends, perhaps? People from your past who might have complicated histories." "I don't know what you're talking about." James's smile was all teeth. "Morrison is a dangerous man, Harmony. The kind of person who leaves destruction in his wake. Helena is trying to protect you from making a terrible mistake." "How do you know about—" "I know about everything that concerns my car." "Family," James interrupted. "And your family now, whether you like it or not." "I appreciate your concern," Harmony said carefully, "but I can take care of myself." "Can you?" James's gaze flicked to her wheelchair. "I may be in a wheelchair, but I'm not helpless." "Of course not," James said. "But you're also not thinking clearly. Grief, isolation, financial dependence, they can make a person desperate, vulnerable to manipulation." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that men like Morrison prey on vulnerable women. They offer them dreams, hope, a chance to feel important again. But it's all an illusion, Harmony. And when it falls apart, innocent people get hurt." "Helena doesn't know you're talking to me like this, does she?" "Helena doesn't need to know. She has enough to worry about, adjusting to married life. The last thing she needs is her sister getting mixed up with criminals." "Criminals?" "Morrison operates outside the law, Harmony. The people he associates with, the things he does, They're not the stuff of fairy tales. They're the stuff of newspaper headlines and police investigations. He paused at the door, looking back at her with what might have been pity. Helena loves you. We both do. But love sometimes means making hard choices to protect the people we care about. I hope you'll remember that before you do something we'll all regret. After he left, Harmony sat in the dark office, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fury. James's words had been carefully chosen, designed to sound protective while carrying the unmistakable edge of a threat. But they'd also confirmed something important. Whatever Dante Morrison was involved in, it was significant enough to make a man like James Blackwood nervous. She looked down at her hands, remembering the way Dante had shaken hers, with respect, not pity. The way Sky had hugged her without hesitation, as if her wheelchair was simply another part of her, no more significant than the color of her hair. Morning light filtered through the guest room's gauze curtains, casting everything in a soft, deceptive glow. Harmony had barely slept, James's words circling through her mind like vultures. When she finally wheeled herself to the kitchen, she found Helena already dressed and packing a suitcase. "You're leaving?" Harmony asked. "James surprised me with an extended honeymoon," Helena said. "We're flying out this afternoon. Paris, Rome, maybe Greece if we have time." "That's wonderful," Harmony said. "You deserve a perfect honeymoon after such a beautiful wedding." "About last night, Harmony, I'm sorry if I seem strange. It was just the stress of the wedding. Too much champagne, you understand." "Of course. And that man, Morrison, I was probably overreacting. Wedding day nerves, you know? But still, it might be better if you just let it go. Some people are better left in the past." Harmony studied her sister's face, noting the dark circles under her expertly applied concealer, the slight tremor in her hands. "Helena, are you in some kind of trouble?" "Trouble? Don't be ridiculous. I just married the man of my dreams. What could possibly be wrong?" James appeared in the doorway, looking immaculate in a charcoal suit despite the early hour. "Good morning, Harmony. I trust you slept well?" "Like a baby," she lied. "Excellent. Helena, darling, the car will be here in 20 minutes. You should finish packing." Helena nodded, leaving Harmony alone with James. He poured himself coffee with precise, economical movements, every gesture controlled. "I hope you'll consider what we discussed last night," he said. "I considered it. And I think you're right," Harmony said. "I'm not thinking clearly. Grief makes people do stupid things. I'm glad you see it that way. Helena was worried about you. There's no need for her to worry. I'll stay out of trouble." "Good." James set down his coffee cup with a decisive clink. "I've arranged for a car service to take you home this afternoon. Your apartment should feel comfortable after spending so much time here." The dismissal was polite but unmistakable. Now that he'd neutralized whatever threat he thought she posed, he wanted her gone. "That's very thoughtful," Harmony said. After James left to load the luggage, Harmony sat alone in the pristine kitchen, surrounded by wedding gifts, still wrapped in silver paper. Her reflection stared back at her from the chrome surface of the refrigerator, pale, tired, diminished. Is this who she'd become? Someone who could be bought off with threats and false concern? When had she stopped being a survivor and become a victim? Helena reappeared with her suitcase, looking like a magazine cover in her traveling outfit, cream cashmere and pearls, every hair in place. But her eyes held a desperation that makeup couldn't hide. "I'll call you from Paris," Helena said. "Take care of yourself while we're gone, okay? Maybe this would be a good time to think about moving forward, finding a new purpose." "Maybe it would." James loaded Helena's bags into the waiting Mercedes, his movements efficient and businesslike. As they prepared to leave, Helena turned back one more time. "I love you, Harmony. You know that, right?" "I know," Harmony said, and for the first time in years, she meant it. Helena did love her in her own complicated way, but love without trust, without honesty, was just another kind of prison. After they left, Harmony called the car service and canceled her ride home. Then she retrieved Dante's card from her purse and stared at the address written in elegant script. She could go home to her small, safe apartment and spend the rest of her life wondering what if she could accept James's version of reality, where she was too broken to make her own choices and too vulnerable to navigate the world without protection. Or she could find out what Dante Morrison and his mysterious daughter were really offering. The taxi ride across the city gave her time to second-guess her decision a dozen times. The address led to an exclusive neighborhood where old mansions sat behind iron gates and ancient trees. When the taxi pulled up to a set of imposing stone pillars, Harmony almost asked the driver to turn around. But then she saw the gate standing open, as if someone had been expecting her. The driveway curved through meticulously maintained gardens, past fountains and rose beds that spoke of old money and older secrets. The house itself was a masterpiece of Gothic architecture, all towers and arched windows, like something out of a fairy tale. Before she could press the bell, the front door opened to reveal Dante Morrison. Gone was the formal black suit from the wedding. Today he wore dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater that clung to his lean frame. "I wasn't certain you'd come," he said, stepping aside to let her in. "I wasn't certain either, until about 5 minutes ago." The interior of the house was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings, rich wood paneling, artwork that belonged in museums. But like the exterior, everything had been designed with accessibility in mind. "You planned for this," she said, gesturing to the obvious accommodations. "I planned for many contingencies," Dante replied. Before Harmony could ask what he meant, a small rocket launched itself at her wheelchair. Sky threw her arms around Harmony's neck, her face bright with joy. "You came! You came! I told Daddy you would. But he said I shouldn't get my hopes up because grown-ups sometimes make promises they can't keep, but I knew you were different." "Sky, breathe," Dante said. "Let Miss Harmony at least get inside before you tackle her." "It's okay," Harmony said. "I missed you too, sweetheart." And she realized, with a start, that it was true. In the 36 hours since they'd met, she'd thought about this child more than she'd thought about anything else in months. There was something about Sky's unguarded affection that had awakened parts of Harmony she'd thought were dead. "Come on," Sky said. "I want to show you my room. Daddy got me a princess bed with a canopy and everything, but I told him I'd rather have bunk beds so friends could sleep over. Do you think we could be friends? Real friends who have sleepovers and tell secrets?" Harmony looked up to find Dante watching their interaction with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Your daughter is remarkable," she told him. "She's not actually my daughter," Dante said. "Not biologically, anyway. But she's mine in every way that matters." "How did you find her?" "She found me 3 weeks ago, living in the subway tunnels downtown. Her mother had died of an overdose, and she'd been surviving on scraps and charity. When I found her, she was so thin I could count her ribs." "What about social services, foster care?" "The system failed her before she even got into it," Dante said. "Her mother was in their database, flagged for drug use and neglect, but no one bothered to check on the child. By the time someone noticed, it was too late. But surely now that she's safe." "Safe is a relative term." Dante moved to the window, gazing out at the gardens where Sky was now chasing a butterfly. The people who should have protected her didn't care enough to try. "What makes you think they care now? This isn't just about Sky, is it?" she asked. Dante's reflection in the window showed a man haunted by ghosts. "I had a younger brother once, Carlo. He was 15 when he disappeared, snatched off the street in broad daylight while walking home from school. The police said he was probably a runaway, that teenage boys go missing all the time. They barely looked for him. What happened to him? I found his body 6 months later, in a warehouse on the docks. He'd been used, sold, discarded when they were done with him." Dante's voice never wavered, but his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "The men who killed him were never caught. The investigation was closed due to lack of evidence. I'm so sorry. I swore that day that no other child would suffer what Carlo Dark Day suffered, not if I could prevent it." "Is that what you do, rescue children?" "I do whatever is necessary to protect the innocent. Sometimes that means rescue. Sometimes it means other things. James Blackwood told me you were dangerous, she said. James Blackwood would know. He's one of the people I've been watching. What do you mean? I mean, your sister's new husband is involved in the same network that killed my brother. The same network you were investigating 6 years ago before your convenient accident. That's impossible. James is in finance. He's a money launderer for one of the largest human trafficking operations on the East Coast, Dante said bluntly. You're lying. Am I? Then why did your sister look terrified when she saw me? Why did she insist you leave immediately? Why is James so eager to get you out of town and away from me? Harmony's mind raced, connecting dots she didn't want to see. Helena's fear, James's threats, the convenient honeymoon that felt more like an escape than a celebration. Helena doesn't know, she said desperately. Or is she just very good at pretending? Before Harmony could respond, Sky burst through the French doors, her cheeks flushed from running. Miss Harmony, come see the gardens. There's a pond with fish and a gazebo just like where we met, but this one is happy instead of sad. I'd love to see the gardens, she said, allowing Sky to lead her outside. But as they moved through the French doors, Dante's words echoed in her mind. If even half of what he'd said was true, then everything she'd thought she knew about her life, her family, her accident, was a lie. The gardens were a masterpiece of landscape design, with winding paths that accommodated her wheelchair and hidden alcoves that invited quiet contemplation. Sky flitted between the flower beds like the butterfly she'd been chasing, chattering about the names Dante had taught her for different plants. That's jasmine, she said, pointing to a vine covered in white blooms. It smells like heaven, and those are peonies. But Daddy says they're dramatic because they bloom so pretty and then drop all their petals at once. Dramatic flowers, Harmony mused. Daddy built this for me, Sky said proudly. He said every princess needs a castle, but I told him I'd rather have a garden where things grow. Dead castles are boring. Smart girl. Daddy says you used to take pictures for a living, like with a real camera? I did, yes. Could you take pictures of me? Not boring pictures like for school, but adventure pictures? I want to remember everything about being happy. The simple request broke Harmony's heart. This child, who'd lived through more trauma in 5 years than most people experienced in a lifetime, wanted to document happiness as if it might slip away. I don't have my camera with me, Harmony said. Daddy has cameras. Lots of them. He takes pictures too, but his are different, more serious. What kind of pictures does Daddy take? Pictures of bad people doing bad things. He says sometimes pictures are the only way to make people believe the truth. When they returned inside, Dante was waiting with tea and sandwiches arranged on elegant china, but it was the camera equipment spread across the dining room table that caught Harmony's attention, professional-grade gear that must have cost a fortune. Sky mentioned you take photographs, she said. Evidence, Dante corrected. Documentation. The law requires proof, and I make sure that proof exists. For the police? The police prefer not to know how I acquire my evidence. Plausible deniability keeps everyone comfortable. Harmony wheeled closer to examine the equipment. The cameras were top of the line, but it was the telephoto lenses that made her pause. These weren't for portraits or landscapes. They were for surveillance, for capturing images from a distance without detection. This is professional spy equipment, she said. It's professional documentation equipment, Dante corrected. What I document just happens to be people who prefer to work in shadows. People like James Blackwood, among others. Dante moved to a laptop on the side table and opened a folder labeled with yesterday's date. Harmony's breath caught as images from the wedding filled the screen, not the usual celebration photos, but careful documentation of conversations, handshakes, exchanges that looked innocent to casual observers but clearly meant something more to trained eyes. You photographed the entire wedding, she said. I photographed a business meeting disguised as a wedding. Look closer. He clicked through the images, pointing out details that had escaped her notice. A man she'd thought was just another guest was actually photographing license plates. Two women who'd seemed to be gossiping were exchanging what looked like business cards. James himself appeared in several shots, always deep in conversation with men whose faces were hard and calculating. "This man," Dante said, pointing to a distinguished gentleman, "runs the largest auction house on the East Coast. Officially, he deals in art and antiques. Unofficially, he facilitates private sales of items that don't appear in any catalog." "What kind of items?" "The kind that can't be legally bought or sold." Harmony stared at the photos, trying to reconcile the elegant wedding reception with the criminal enterprise Dante was describing. But the evidence was there in every carefully captured frame, a network of people who hid their true business behind respectability and social connections. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. "Because 6 years ago, you were investigating the same network. You'd identified several key players, documented their operations, traced money flows. You were close to exposing everything when your investigation suddenly ended. By accident. By attempted murder." Dante said bluntly. "Your brake lines were cut, Harmony. Your parents died because someone wanted to stop your investigation, and you survived by sheer luck and stubbornness. Do you have proof of this?" Dante opened another folder on the laptop, this one filled with police reports, insurance documents, and what looked like surveillance footage. "The mechanic who worked on your car was paid $50,000 to keep quiet about what he found. The insurance investigator was transferred to another case before he could complete his report. The detective assigned to your parents' case was promoted and moved to another precinct within a month. That could be assigned to Juan. Coincidence? It could be, but this isn't." He played a video file that made Harmony's blood turn to ice. It was dashcam footage from another vehicle, showing her parents' car sliding off the road exactly as she remembered. But it also showed another car, one that had been following them, that had bumped their rear bumper just before the turn where they'd lost control. "They were run off the road," she whispered, "by professionals who knew exactly how to make it look like an accident. You were supposed to die with them, Harmony. The fact that you survived, even injured and with memory loss, made you a loose end they couldn't ignore. Why didn't they try again? If I was such a threat, why leave me alive? Because you didn't remember. The amnesia made you harmless, a broken woman who couldn't hurt them even if she wanted to. But then you started getting too close to the truth again. I haven't been investigating anything. I've been hiding in my apartment feeling sorry for myself. No, but your sister was about to marry into their organization. They needed to make sure you wouldn't be a problem, so they had James get close to Helena. The marriage served two purposes. It gave them a legitimate reason to monitor you, and it provided leverage if you ever became a threat again. Helena, Harmony breathed, her heart breaking for her sister. She really doesn't know, does she? She knows something is wrong. She's known for months, maybe longer, but she's scared, isolated, and completely dependent on James for her lifestyle and security. When people are that vulnerable, they often choose willful blindness over dangerous truth. We have to help her. "We?" Dante raised an eyebrow. "An hour ago, you thought I was dangerous. Now you want to partner with me? An hour ago, I thought my biggest problem was learning to live with what I'd lost," she said. "Now I know my biggest problem is deciding whether to hide from what I've found or fight for what I can still save. And what's decision?" Harmony met his gaze, seeing her own reflection in those storm-gray eyes. Not the broken victim she'd become, but the fierce investigator she'd once been. "I want my camera back," she said. "I want to finish what I started 6 years ago. And I want to make sure that no one else loses their family the way we did. Welcome to the war. Harmony Wilson." But even as she committed herself to his cause, a part of her wondered if she was walking into salvation or damnation. The only thing she knew for certain was that she couldn't go back to the half-life she'd been living. 3 months later, Harmony barely recognized herself. The woman who had contemplated ending her life at Helena's wedding had been replaced by someone harder, sharper, more focused. She'd moved into Dante's estate permanently, occupying a suite of rooms that had been designed with her needs in mind. Wide doorways, accessible bathroom, and a dark room where she could develop the surveillance photographs that had become her specialty. Sky had adapted to having a live-in photographer with the enthusiasm only a child could muster. She posed for portraits in the garden, helped organize contact sheets, and chattered constantly about everything she'd learned in her daily lessons with her tutor. The little girl called her Mama Harmony now, a title that made Harmony's chest tight with fierce protectiveness every time she heard it. But it was her relationship with Dante that had grown most complex. Working together had revealed layers of the man that his careful facade had hidden, brilliant strategic thinking, coupled with a capacity for violence that should have terrified her, but somehow didn't. He was ruthless in pursuit of his goals, but never cruel without purpose. Dangerous, but only to those who threatened the innocent. Living in such close quarters, she'd also discovered his gentler side. The way he read bedtime stories to Sky with different voices for every character. How he left fresh coffee outside her darkroom when she worked late into the night. The careful way he helped her navigate social situations where her wheelchair made things awkward, never making her feel weak or diminished. He was falling in love with her. She could see it in the way his eyes followed her movements, in the unconscious tenderness of his voice when he spoke her name. The realization should have complicated everything, but instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. On a gray October morning, Harmony wheeled herself into Dante's office to find him staring at surveillance photos spread across his desk. The images showed James Blackwood entering and leaving various buildings around the city: hotels, office complexes, private residences. New intelligence? She asked. A pattern? Dante said. James has been meeting with the same core group of people every week since he and Helena returned from their honeymoon. Either they're planning something big, or they're worried about something. Harmony studied the photos, noting the tension in James's body language. He looks nervous. He should be. We've been systematically dismantling his network for 3 months. Half his money laundering operations have been shut down by anonymous tips to the FBI, and several of his associates have been arrested on various charges. Anonymous tips that you provided. Evidence I provided. The tips themselves came from sources the FBI trusts, people who have no official connection to me but who understand the value of justice. It was a careful dance they'd been performing, gathering evidence through methods that wouldn't hold up in court, then finding ways to get that information into the hands of law enforcement through channels that appeared legitimate. Dante had cultivated a network of allies over the years, prosecutors who'd lost cases to technicalities, FBI agents frustrated by jurisdictional limitations, social workers who'd seen too many children slip through cracks in the system. There's something else, Dante said. Helena has been meeting with FBI agent Rodriguez. How long has this been going on? At least 6 weeks that we can document. Rodriguez specializes in financial crimes and human trafficking. She's been building a case against James's network for over a year, but she needed an inside source. Helena's wearing a wire, almost certainly. Look at her body language. She's terrified, but determined. This isn't a woman who's been coerced into cooperation. This is someone who's made a choice. When did she figure it out? My guess? She started suspecting something during the wedding planning. James brought her into his social circle, introduced her to his associates, and she started noticing things that didn't add up. Rich men who were too interested in charity work with vulnerable populations. Conversations that stopped when she entered the room. Money that came from sources he couldn't adequately explain. So she went to the FBI. Eventually. But first, she tried to protect you by keeping you away from the investigation. That's why she was so frightened when she saw me at the wedding. She thought I might be one of James's associates, someone dangerous who was taking an interest in her sister. She's been trying to protect me this entire time, and you've been trying to protect her. Both of you are working toward the same goal from opposite directions. Sky appeared in the doorway. Are we still going to the park today? She asked hopefully. Of course, sweetheart, Harmony said. Just let me finish up here. After Sky skipped away to find her tutor, Dante gathered the photographs and locked them in his desk drawer. We're going to have to coordinate with the FBI eventually, he said. Rodriguez is good at her job, but she doesn't have the kind of evidence we've gathered. and she doesn't know about the attempts on your life or the connection to your parents' murder. What are you suggesting? A meeting. Unofficial. Off the books. I share what I know, she shares what she needs, and we find a way to take down the entire network without getting any of us killed in the process. That sounds dangerous. Harmony, everything we've been doing is dangerous. The only question is whether we're going to be smart about it or stupid about it. That afternoon, while Sky played on the swings at the neighborhood park, Harmony called Helena's cell phone. Her sister answered on the first ring, sounding breathless and anxious. Harmony, is everything okay? I was about to ask you the same thing. We need to talk, Helena. Really talk. I can't. James will be home soon. And James is at a meeting downtown with Senator Richardson and 2 men from the Moretti's organization. He won't be home for at least 3 hours. How do you know that? Helena whispered. Because I've been watching him. The same way you've been reporting on him to Agent Rodriguez. Oh God, Harmony, you don't understand what you're involved in. These people are murderers, traffickers, the same people who killed our parents 6 years ago to stop me from exposing them. Yes, Helena, I understand exactly what I'm involved in. Then you know you have to stop. You have to disappear, get away from Morrison, before they do what? Kill me like they tried to 6 years ago? Helena, running away didn't work then, and it won't work now. The only way this ends is if we finish it. We, you, me, Agent Rodriguez, and yes, Dante Morrison. All of us are working together to bring down the network that's been destroying families for decades. I'm so scared, Harmony. James isn't the man I thought I married. The things he's involved in, the people he knows. I see children sometimes, at parties, who look wrong, too thin, too scared, too careful, and when I ask about them, everyone changes the subject. I know, sweetheart, I know, but you're not alone anymore, and neither am I. Morrison, is he really one of the good guys? He's one of ours, she said simply, and right now, that's what matters. What do you need me to do? Keep doing exactly what you've been doing. Keep Rodriguez informed, keep playing the part of the naive wife, and keep yourself safe. But when the time comes, and it will come soon, you'll need to be ready to run. Can you do that? Yes. And Helena, I love you. Whatever happens, whatever you've done or haven't done, you're still my sister. That will never change. After she hung up, Harmony sat in her wheelchair, watching Sky navigate the monkey bars with fierce determination. The little girl had grown stronger over the past 3 months, both physically and emotionally. Mama Harmony. Sky called from the top of the slide. Watch me. I'm watching, baby girl. As Sky whooshed down the slide with her arms raised in triumph, Harmony made a silent promise. This child would grow up in a world where monsters faced consequences for their actions, where families like hers couldn't be destroyed by people who saw human lives as commodities. Whatever it cost her, she would make sure Sky never had to be afraid again. The attack came at dawn on a Tuesday, when the morning mist still clung to the estate's gardens and Sky was safely asleep in her princess bed. Harmony woke to the sound of breaking glass and Dante's voice cutting through the intercom system. Lockdown protocol. Now. She transferred from her bed to her wheelchair with practiced efficiency, muscle memory from months of emergency drills taking over. The panic room was accessible from her suite, hidden behind a bookshelf that rolled aside at the touch of a button. She made it inside just as the first explosion shook the house. Through the bulletproof glass, she watched armed figures in tactical gear pour through the breach in the east wall. They moved with professional precision, spreading out to cover all exits while a smaller team headed directly for the main house. These weren't common criminals. They were military-trained, equipped with the kind of gear that cost more than most people made in a year. Sky, she whispered. Where's Sky? Safe, Dante's voice crackled back. She's in the secondary location with Marcus. They were moved an hour ago. The panic room's surveillance system gave her access to cameras throughout the estate, and she watched in horror as Dante's security team engaged the intruders. The men protecting them were well-trained, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Bodies fell on both sides, and Harmony found herself documenting the violence with the automatic detachment of a professional photographer, even as her heart pounded with terror. Then she saw him, James Blackwood, directing the assault from behind the cover of an armored vehicle. He wasn't cowering like a man who'd been coerced into betrayal. He was commanding the operation like someone who'd been planning it for months. "Dante," she said into the comm, "James is here. He's running the show." "I know. Helena, I don't see her. She's safe. This was expected. You used me as bait. I used us both as bait," Dante corrected. They had to make a move eventually. Better to control when and where than wait for them to choose the moment. Through the cameras, she watched Dante moving through the house like a shadow, taking out intruders with cold efficiency. He'd changed from the man who read bedtime stories to Sky. This was the predator James had warned her about, the one who left destruction in his wake. But the destruction was surgical, precise, targeting only those who posed a threat to innocent lives. "North corridor clear," she reported, "but there's a team moving toward your position from the kitchen." "Copy that." The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. When the smoke cleared, James Blackwood's assault team had been neutralized. Some dead, others zip-tied and unconscious, all of them evidence for the FBI agents who arrived exactly 23 minutes after the shooting stopped. Agent Rodriguez emerged from the lead vehicle, her expression grim as she surveyed the scene. Behind her came a convoy of federal agents and crime scene specialists, along with an ambulance for the wounded. "Cleanup was fast," Harmony observed. "Rodriguez has been waiting for this moment as long as we have," Dante replied. "Are you hurt? Physically? No. Emotionally? That remains to be seen." Helena appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 FBI agents and looking like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Her hair was disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled, and her eyes were red with tears. "Harmony!" She rushed forward, dropping to her knees beside the wheelchair. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this." "Shh." Harmony soothed. "You're safe. That's all that matters." "I didn't know," Helena sobbed. "About the attack, about James planning to... I thought I was helping the FBI build a case. I didn't know he suspected me. I didn't know he was going to try to kill you." Agent Rodriguez approached them, her expression sympathetic but professional. "Mrs. Blackwood has been instrumental in our investigation," she said. "The intelligence she provided over the past 4 months has allowed us to dismantle a network that's been operating for over a decade." "What happens now?" Harmony asked. "Now we process the evidence, arrest the remaining conspirators, and prepare for the biggest human trafficking trial in the state's history." Rodriguez looked between Harmony and Dante. "We're going to need both of you to testify." "That won't be a problem," Dante said. "I assumed as much. The evidence you've been feeding us through back channels has been invaluable." Helena looked up at Harmony with confused eyes. "You've been working with the FBI too?" "Unofficially," Harmony said. "And not just the FBI. Dante has contacts in law enforcement, social services, and prosecutors' offices across 3 states. This network wasn't just operating locally, Helena. Children were being moved up and down the East Coast, sold to buyers as far away as Europe and Asia." "The wedding," Helena whispered. "All those people were involved, yes. The auction house owner was facilitating international sales. The senator was providing political protection. Even the priest who married you was part of the network. He specialized in providing false documentation for victims who were being moved across borders." "My marriage isn't legal, is it?" "Probably not," Rodriguez said gently. "Father Martinez was defrocked 8 years ago for similar activities in another diocese. The ceremony he performed would never have been recognized by the church or the state." "But that means," Helena's voice broke, "I was never really married to James. This whole nightmare, everything I've been through, means you're free," Harmony finished. "Completely free." As federal agents continued to process the scene, Harmony found herself in Dante's office, watching through the windows as crime scene photographers documented the aftermath of the assault. It felt strange to be the subject of investigation rather than the one conducting it. "Regrets?" Dante asked, settling into the chair beside her. About today? No. About the last 3 months? No. About falling in love with a man who keeps military-grade weapons in his home office? She paused thoughtfully. Jury's still out on that one. His laugh was surprising and genuine. Is that what happened? You fell in love with me? Among other things, I also rediscovered my purpose, found a daughter I never expected, and learned that surviving trauma doesn't make you weak, it makes you dangerous to people who prey on the weak. And what happens now that the immediate threat is over? Harmony considered the question, watching federal agents load James Blackwood into an unmarked van. He was conscious but handcuffed, his expensive suit torn and stained. When he looked up at the office window, she met his gaze steadily, no longer the broken woman he'd tried to intimidate. Now we finish the job, she said. There are still children out there who need rescuing. Well, someone has to keep you from disappearing completely into the darkness. And someone has to teach Skye that there's more to life than survival. Is that a proposal, Miss Wilson? It's a partnership agreement, Mr. Morrison, with some very attractive fringe benefits. When he leaned down to kiss her, Harmony could taste the future in his lips. Dangerous, complicated, but real in a way her old life had never been. She was no longer hiding from her past or existing in the shadow of her limitations. The FBI field office buzzed with activity as agents processed the evidence seized from James Blackwood's network. Harmony sat at a conference table surrounded by boxes of documents, hard drives, and the photographs she'd taken over the past 4 months. Agent Rodriguez had cleared a secure room for their debriefing, complete with accessibility accommodations and a direct line to the prosecutor's office. The financial records alone will take months to analyze, Rodriguez said, but your photographs provide context we never could have gotten through traditional surveillance. Harmony pointed to a series of images on her laptop screen. This meeting happened 3 weeks ago at the Riverside Country Club. The man in the blue suit is Thomas Chen. He runs a private school that caters to troubled, wealthy children. The woman he's talking to operates a modeling agency that specializes in very young talent. And you think they're connected to the trafficking network? I know they are. Chen's school has a boarding program where children routinely disappear from enrollment without explanation. The modeling agency has sent dozens of underage girls on overseas assignments that nobody ever returns from. Rodriguez made notes as they talked, building a case that would stretch across multiple jurisdictions and involve law enforcement agencies around the world. The scope of the network was staggering: hundreds of children, millions of dollars, and a web of corruption that reached into the highest levels of government and society. What about the children who are still missing? Harmony asked. That's where Mr. Morrison's intelligence becomes crucial, Rodriguez said. Dante entered the conference room carrying a tablet and wearing the same charcoal suit he'd worn to their first meeting. But there was something different about him now, a lightness that hadn't been there before, as if finishing this case had lifted a weight he'd carried for years. We have locations, he announced. 3 safe houses within driving distance, plus shipping manifests that show children being moved to facilities in Miami, Seattle, and Montreal. How current is this information? Rodriguez asked. As of 2 hours ago. My sources inside the network have been feeding me real-time intelligence since Blackwood's arrest. They want to make deals before the whole operation collapses. And you trust them? I trust their self-interest. They know that cooperation might earn them reduced sentences, while loyalty to a destroyed network will only get them life in prison. Over the next several hours, they coordinated simultaneous raids across multiple states and into Canada. Harmony watched the operations unfold through secure video feeds, her camera documenting the moment when terrified children realized they were being rescued rather than moved to new horrors. 23 children recovered from the first wave of raids. 23 lives were saved because she'd chosen to answer a little girl's question about becoming a mommy instead of ending her own pain in dark water. Miss Harmony. Skye burst into the conference room despite the protests of her FBI babysitter, launching herself at Harmony's wheelchair. Did you see? Did you see all the children on the news? Are they safe now? "They're safe, sweetheart," Harmony said. "Good, because I made them pictures." Sky pulled a stack of construction paper drawings from her backpack, crayon images of stick figures holding hands under bright yellow suns. "I remember being scared, so I made happy pictures for them to have." Rodriguez accepted the drawings with a solemn ceremony. "I'll make sure these get to the children, Sky. They'll love knowing someone was thinking about them." As evening fell, they relocated to a safe house in the suburbs while the FBI continued processing evidence and conducting arrests. Helena had been moved there earlier in the day, and Harmony found her sister in the kitchen, mechanically making sandwiches for the agents on guard duty. "You don't have to do that," Harmony said. "I need to do something useful," Helena replied without. "I've spent months being useless, being scared, letting everyone else fight my battles for me. You weren't useless. The intelligence you provided was the least I could do after marrying a monster." Helena's knife slipped, cutting through the sandwich and scoring the cutting board beneath. "How did I not see it, Harmony?" "Because he was very good at hiding it, and because you wanted to believe you'd found something beautiful after everything our family had been through. Do you think Mama and Daddy would be proud of us for finishing what you started? I think they would be amazed at how strong their daughters turned out to be." That night, as they waited for the final arrests to be completed, Harmony found herself on the safe house's back patio with Dante. Sky was finally asleep, exhausted from the excitement and drama of the day. Helena had retreated to her room to process the end of her nightmare marriage and the beginning of whatever came next. "Second thoughts?" Dante asked. "About which part? Falling in love with you, adopting Sky, or declaring war on human traffickers?" "Any of it. All of it. 6 months ago, I was ready to die because I couldn't see any purpose in living. Tonight, I'm planning a future that involves raising a daughter, building a life with a man who sees me as strong instead of broken, and using my skills to protect children who can't protect themselves. That sounds like a yes to all three. It is. But I have conditions, such as Sky gets a normal childhood, birthday parties, school friends, summer camps, all the things she missed while she was surviving on the streets. And no more military assaults on our home. I don't care how good your security is. I refuse to raise a child in an armed compound." "Agreed. What else?" "Helena gets to be part of our family if she wants. She's going to need time to heal, to figure out who she is when she's not afraid. But she's still my sister, of course. And you see a therapist, someone who specializes in trauma and violence, who can help you process everything you've been through and everything you've done in the name of justice." "That's not negotiable?" "Nothing about loving you is negotiable," Harmony said. "I won't watch you destroy yourself with guilt over the choices you've had to make, and I won't let Sky grow up thinking that violence is the only solution to the world's problems, even when violence is sometimes the only solution. Especially then. She needs to understand that violence can be a tool of justice, but it should never be the first tool or the only tool. And if I can't change, if the darkness is too much a part of who I am," Harmony reached for his hand, "then we'll figure it out together. But you don't get to make that choice alone anymore, Dante. You have a family now. We have a say in what happens to you. A family. A weird, complicated, probably dysfunctional family. But yes, I love you, Harmony Wilson. I love you too. All of you. The protector, the predator, the man who reads bedtime stories in funny voices. I love the whole complicated package." When he kissed her, it tasted like promises and possibilities, like the future they were going to build together from the wreckage of their individual pasts. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "Now we go home. We tuck our daughter into bed, we plan a wedding that isn't a criminal conspiracy, and we figure out what happily ever after looks like for people like us." "People like us?" "Survivors, fighters, people who refuse to let the darkness win." Harmony smiled, thinking of Sky's crayon drawings of stick figures holding hands under bright yellow suns. "I can live with that," she said. "Good," Dante replied, pulling her close. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and cameras as Harmony wheeled herself up the accessibility ramp 6 months later. The trial of James Blackwood and his associates had dominated headlines for weeks, but today would bring the final verdicts in what prosecutors were calling the largest human trafficking case in state history. Dante walked beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Support without possession, strength without dominance. They'd spent months in therapy, both individual and couples counseling, learning to build a relationship founded on partnership rather than trauma bonding. It was harder work than either of them had expected, but more rewarding than anything in their previous lives. Helena waited for them inside the courthouse, wearing a simple navy dress and carrying a folder thick with victim impact statements. She'd thrown herself into victim advocacy work, using her experience to help other women escape abusive relationships and rebuild their lives. "Ready for this?" Helena asked, squeezing Harmony's hand. "I've been ready for 6 years," Harmony replied. The courtroom was packed with law enforcement officers, social workers, attorneys, and journalists. Agent Rodriguez caught Harmony's eye from the prosecution table and nodded slightly. The evidence they'd gathered together, photographs, financial records, testimonies from rescued children, had built an unshakable case. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Chen. Judge Chen was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much injustice to tolerate anymore. She'd presided over the 3-month trial with firm efficiency, cutting through legal maneuvering to focus on the evidence and the victims. Has the jury reached a verdict in the matter of the state versus James Blackwood? The jury foreman stood, holding a sheet of paper that would determine whether months of work had been worthwhile. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to commit human trafficking, how do you find guilty? On the charge of racketeering, guilty. On the charge of money laundering, guilty." The guilty verdicts continued for each of the 37 charges James faced. Harmony watched his face as his life was systematically dismantled by the justice system, but felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only relief that he could never hurt another child. "Mr. Blackwood," Judge Chen said when the verdicts were complete, "you have been found guilty of crimes that strike at the very heart of human dignity. The evidence presented in this trial reveals a systematic effort to commodify and exploit the most vulnerable members of our society, children who depended on adults for protection and instead found only predation." James stood for sentencing, his expensive suit unable to disguise the defeat in his posture. "You are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The court recommends that you be transferred to the federal facility in Colorado, where you will be placed in protective custody for your own safety." Similar sentences followed for his co-conspirators. The priest who'd performed illegal marriages, 25 years. The auction house owner who'd facilitated international sales, life without parole. The modeling agency operator who'd trafficked dozens of young girls, multiple life sentences. As court adjourned, Harmony found herself surrounded by a crowd of people whose lives had been touched by the case. Social workers thanked her for giving them the evidence they needed to protect children in their care. FBI agents praised her photographic documentation that had made convictions possible. Parents of rescued children hugged her with tears in their eyes, grateful beyond words for the role she'd played in bringing their babies home. But it was Maria Santos, one of the survivors, who moved Harmony most deeply. Maria was 19 now, a college sophomore studying social work, but she'd been 14 when James's network had trafficked her from Mexico to the United States. "Miss Wilson," Maria said, "I wanted to thank you. The photographs you took of the safe house where they kept me, they helped the FBI understand how many children had been held there. Your evidence saved lives." "You saved your own life by being brave enough to testify," Harmony replied. "No," Maria said firmly. "You saw us. When everyone else looked away, you saw us, and you remembered that we mattered. That's what made the difference." As they left the courthouse, Harmony reflected on Maria's words. For years, she'd thought her value lay in her ability to walk, to chase stories into dangerous places, to be the fearless photographer who went where others couldn't. But the most important work of her life had been done from a wheelchair, using her limitations as a cover to document truth that needed to be seen. "Mama Harmony! Daddy!" Sky's voice cut through the crowd as she broke away from her babysitter and ran toward them. "How did it go?" she asked, taking Dante's hand while staying close to Harmony's wheelchair. "Did the bad men get in trouble?" "They got in very big trouble," Harmony confirmed. "Good. I made celebration cookies with Mrs. Patterson. They're shaped like cameras because you're the best picture taker in the world." "Camera cookies sound perfect," Dante said, lifting Sky onto his shoulders. "Should we go home and eat them?" "Yes. And then can we look at the wedding plans?" "I want to make sure my dress matches Mama Harmony's." They'd set the wedding for next month, a small ceremony in the estate's gardens with only family and close friends in attendance. Sky was to be the flower girl and ring bearer, a dual role she took very seriously. Helena would serve as maid of honor, while Agent Rodriguez had agreed to be Dante's best man, an unconventional choice that reflected the unconventional family they'd become. As they walked to their car, Harmony caught sight of a news crew interviewing the lead prosecutor about the case. She could hear fragments of the conversation. "Largest trafficking network in state history. Breakthrough in investigative techniques. Victory for survivors everywhere." But the words that mattered most to her were the ones Sky chatted as they drove. Home, planning, cookie decorations, and wedding flowers, and the treehouse Dante had promised to build in the oak tree behind the house. This was what justice looked like in the end. Not just punishment for the guilty, but the chance for innocence to grow again in places where it had been stolen. "Are we going to live happily ever after now?" Sky asked as they pulled into their driveway. Harmony looked at Dante, seeing her own contentment reflected in his eyes. They'd been through hell to get here, but they'd emerged as a family, scarred but not broken, changed but not diminished. "We're going to live," she said simply. "Really live. And that's the best kind of happily ever after." 1 year later, Harmony stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the new Dante Morrison Foundation offices, watching the city wake up in the morning light. The foundation occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown building with space for victim services, legal advocacy, and the investigative unit that had grown from their initial efforts to dismantle James's network, Mama Harmony. Sky's voice echoed through the office. "Look what I made in art class." The 7-year-old held up a painting that was unmistakably her work, bold strokes of color depicting a family of stick figures standing in front of a house, with a yellow sun beaming down from a blue sky. But this painting was different from her earlier ones. These stick figures were diverse in size and ability, one clearly sitting in a wheelchair, another holding what looked like a briefcase, and a small figure in the middle, with arms stretched wide to encompass them all. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Harmony said. "Tell me about it." "That's our family," Sky explained proudly. "You and Daddy and me and Aunt Helena and even Agent Rodriguez, because she comes to dinner sometimes. And see?" She pointed to tiny figures scattered around the edges of the paper. "Those are all the other families we helped. Because Mrs. Patterson says families can grow in lots of different ways." Mrs. Patterson was Sky's new teacher at the private school they'd enrolled, her in a small, progressive institution that specialized in children who'd experienced trauma. Sky was thriving there, making friends and discovering talents. Dante said, appearing in the doorway with a tablet in his hand. "We have a new case." Harmony's pulse quickened. Over the past year, their work had evolved beyond the original trafficking network. Law enforcement agencies across the country now consulted with them on cases involving missing children, and their success rate was remarkable. Dante's network of contacts, combined with Harmony's photographic evidence and the Foundation's legal resources, had proven devastatingly effective against predators who thought they were untouchable. "What do we have?" she asked. 3 children missing from foster care in Ohio. The official story is that they ran away, but their social worker thinks something more sinister is happening. She's documented evidence of corruption in the placement system and suspects the children were sold to private buyers. Harmony nodded grimly. It was a pattern they'd seen before: vulnerable children in state care being trafficked by the very people supposed to protect them. Timeline? The social worker, Jennifer Hayes, is flying in this afternoon. She's bringing case files and evidence, but she's also scared. "I'll set up the secure conference room," Harmony said. And Helena should sit in on the initial briefing. Her experience with victim advocacy might be useful. Helena had proven invaluable to the Foundation's work, especially in cases involving women and children who'd been trafficked or abused. As Dante and Sky headed to the Foundation's daycare center, a bright, cheerful space where the children of employees and clients could be safe while their parents worked, Harmony prepared for another battle in their ongoing war against those who preyed on innocence. The conference room was designed for accessibility and comfort, with multiple seating options and technology that allowed participants to join remotely if needed. Jennifer Hayes turned out to be a young woman in her early 30s, with tired eyes and the determined set of someone who'd seen too much but refused to stop fighting. "I've been documenting irregularities for months," she explained. "Children disappearing from the system without proper paperwork, placement fees being paid to shell companies, foster parents who pass background checks despite red flags that should have disqualified them." Harmony studied the photographs Jennifer had managed to take, covertly images of meetings between social workers and well-dressed individuals who clearly didn't belong in government offices, documents being shredded, and most damning of all, 3 children being loaded into an unmarked van outside a placement facility. "These children," she said, pointing to the van photos, "are they the ones who are missing? Marcus Williams, age 8, Sarah Chen, age 10, and Tommy Rodriguez, age 12. All of them have been in the system for years, all of them considered difficult to place because of behavioral issues stemming from their trauma, which makes them perfect targets," Helena said. "No one expects them to be adopted quickly, so their disappearance doesn't raise immediate red flags." "Exactly. And when they do disappear, it's easy to classify them as runaways because of their history." Dante leaned back in his chair. "What's your supervisor's involvement?" "Rebecca Foster. She's been with the department for 15 years, exemplary record. But in the past year, her lifestyle has changed dramatically. New car, expensive clothes, vacation photos from places that should be way beyond her government salary. Classic signs of supplemental income," Harmony observed. "Do you have financial records?" "Some, but I'm afraid to dig too deep without backup. If she realizes I'm investigating her." Jennifer's voice trailed off. "She could destroy evidence and hurt more children," Helena finished. Over the next several hours, they developed a strategy that had become familiar through repetition, coordinating with law enforcement to protect evidence and potential victims, conduct covert surveillance to document criminal activity, and build an airtight case that would result in prosecutions and systemic changes to prevent future abuse. As afternoon faded to evening, Harmony found herself once again documenting the face of evil through her camera lens. But this time, she wasn't alone in a dangerous situation, relying solely on her own resources and determination. She was part of a team, supported by people who shared her commitment to protecting the innocent and backed by an organization that had the resources and connections to see justice. "Done. Target acquired," she murmured into her communication device, photographing Rebecca Foster as the social worker met with a man they'd identified as a broker for illegal adoptions. Exchange appears to be happening now. Through her telephoto lens, she captured Foster accepting an envelope that was obviously stuffed with cash, while the broker showed her photographs on his phone, images that were almost certainly of the missing children. "Package is moving," Dante's voice came through her earpiece. He was positioned across the street, tracking the broker as he left the meeting. Federal agents are in position to follow. The arrest came 3 hours later, as Foster attempted to destroy evidence in her office. FBI agents seized computer files, financial records, and a safety deposit box key that led them to more than 200 in unexplained cash. But it was the children's location that mattered most. By midnight, Marcus, Sarah, and Tommy were safe in protective custody. How do they recover from something like this? Jennifer asked. How do you rebuild trust in the system after it's failed you so completely? Very carefully, Harmony said, with patience, consistency, and people who understand that healing takes time. And by making sure it doesn't happen again, Dante added grimly. Foster was just one person in one office. We need to look at systemic changes that prevent this kind of corruption. As they drove home in the early hours of morning, Harmony reflected on how much her life had changed. 2 years ago, she'd been ready to end her pain in dark water, convinced that her disability made her worthless and her future hopeless. Now she was married to a man who saw her strength rather than her limitations, raising a daughter who thought she could do anything, and using her skills to save children who desperately needed advocates. Second thoughts? Dante asked. Never, Harmony replied. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even though it means more late nights, more dangerous situations, more broken children who need our help, especially because of that, we're making a difference, Dante. Real, measurable difference in the world. How many people can say that about their lives? When they arrived home, they found Helena asleep on the couch, still wearing her work clothes, with case files scattered around her and Sky curled up beside her, also fast asleep. They look peaceful, Dante observed. They look like family, Harmony corrected. Helena had moved into the estate permanently 6 months ago, taking over management of the Foundation's Victim Services program and serving as Sky's primary caregiver when Harmony and Dante were on cases. The arrangement worked perfectly for all of them. As she prepared for bed, Harmony caught sight of her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the broken soul who'd contemplated suicide at Helena's wedding. This woman's eyes were bright with purpose, her shoulders straight with confidence, her hands steady with the knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged. Can you be my mommy? The question that had saved her life echoed in her memory, and she smiled at her reflection. Yes, she whispered to the darkness, I can be exactly who you need me to be.